Today, we have to talk about this situation with Helldivers 2. Um, we talked a lot about it yesterday, obviously. And one of the things that I did say yesterday is that right now there's basically a war going on, for the dramatic effect here. There's a war going on between Sony PlayStation and PC gamers. And, one of the things that I said yesterday is that I am not so sure that Sony's going to actually bend the knee here because, they already pulled the trigger. You know what I mean? When it comes to PC, Sony already pulled the trigger and shot themselves in the foot by announcing that that's what they were going to do. But then they also decided to bend the knee after they shot themselves in the foot. And I think there's a lot more to this, unfortunately. I don't know that this is something I'm going to continue to talk about beyond today, unless we get other updates. But I have quite a bit that I want to say because there is. I want to talk about it in a more broad sense. We're going to do that. But I also want to tell you guys how this is making me, as a PlayStation 5 player, as a console player, as somebody who supports the PlayStation brand through the console, this has left me with some feelings. And I'm going to try my best not to be too dramatic about it. But you know how it is with me. Sometimes the emotion just flows and I can't really keep it totally under control. We'll see what happens. But for those who are not aware, PlayStation on their official Twitter account 10 hours ago. So this was actually, this was at 12 a.m. So clearly somebody had to rush in over there at Sony, and they were probably busy, I would say. Not a very relaxing weekend for people at Sony. But they say here, Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update, the May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th. It will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated with future plans. I meant to bring this up. I want to read to you what the CEO, let me see, where's he at? So in response, the CEO says here, so he quote tweets what PlayStation tweeted out, and he says, firstly, I'm impressed by the willpower of the Helldivers 2 community and your ability to collaborate. Secondly, I want to thank our partners and friends at PlayStation for quickly and effectively making the decision to leave PSN linking optional. We together want to set a new standard for what a live game is and how developers and community can support each other to create the best game experiences. So that's what the CEO had to say. Now, if you want to see some wild stuff, I recommend, and maybe we'll read some. You want to see some wild stuff? Let's go check the replies underneath the PlayStation post. Huge W for gamers. I would say yes, but I would add a caveat to that. Huge W for PC gamers, specifically. This is not a W for console players. And I'm going to talk to you guys about this because I honestly feel that I think Sony did so much unnecessary damage to their entire player base here. And I'm going to explain to you why. So, firstly, I want to acknowledge that yesterday I said, again, I know the stream isn't up, but yesterday I said, and I'll reiterate, that if it were up to me, I would have not decided to do this with Helldivers 2 because, well, what's quite surprising is that how could somebody at Sony PlayStation, how could you not realize that by doing something like this 3 months after the game has been out in all of these countries where people are playing, how could you just not very clearly see that this is going to create a lot of backlash? I find it difficult to believe, especially seeing the end result here, I find it incredibly difficult to believe that whoever made this decision did not realize that this was obviously going to happen, like the backlash. That should have been the first thing that popped through their mind when they decided to pull the trigger on this. So what I would have done in the first place is just, hey, don't do it. But here's where things get hairy, right? If I were to decide to do that, where it's like, listen, this is going to create a lot of backlash. A lot of people are going to be unhappy. We're going to get review bombed. We're going to get shit on all across the internet. People are going to rampage. If I were to make this decision, I would have to realize, you can't go back now. Because if you do, you did a full 360 and only hurt yourself in the process. And actually, believe it or not, I think this is damaging to their console and their console player base. I do. I think this is huge for PC players. This is such a massive W for PC players that honestly, good luck, Sony. There's blood in the water now. And again, there didn't have to be blood in the water. Sony didn't have to do this, but they did. And it's their blood that's in the water. And PC players they know it. They know it. PC players now understand that if we get aggressive enough, if we get mean enough, if we get nasty enough, if we come together enough, Sony will bend. And you know what? Hats off to them. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. You're saying it's not a big deal? You could not be more wrong. I know it's easy to think that, but no, this is massive and will have repercussive effects on PlayStation has put a permanent stain on their PC presence. But I would argue, listen, I'm a console player. I have been saying for years, Sony, why do you make me pay for PlayStation Plus to play online games? Why do you make me do that? And I pushed back against that time and time again. I remember when Sony raised the price of PlayStation Plus, I freaked out about it. I'm like, what? Why? You can't even have a cheaper alternative for people who just want to sign up just so they can play online games on their PS5? And nothing. There's nothing. And PC players have been communicating to me for months and for years that, dude, PC is better. PC is better because they don't do this stuff over here. And what's so crazy about this situation is Sony, I want to read this last line to you. Like we really need to highlight this. You ready? Quote, "We're still learning what is best for PC players and your feedback has been invaluable," end quote. I hope Sony is aware of the message that they just communicated to not just PC gamers by saying that, but everybody, all gamers. We're still learning what's best for PC gamers. Well, please tell me, Sony. Please, what is best for PC gamers? I'm curious. What is best for PC gamers? Well, I think it's clear. What's best for PC gamers is no PSN account requirement for Helldivers 2. Okay, well, why don't you go look at the replies you're getting? Do you know how many people right now are saying, well, Sony, you should do this going forward. No more account requirement. There should be no account requirement. No PSN account requirement. So Sony is communicating to me, the PlayStation console player, that they're still learning what's best for the PC audience. And it piques my interest. Okay, well, I've been playing on console, and Sony has communicated to me what is best for console players. I want to know what is best for PC players. And if what's best for PC players also what should be best for console players. Because again, I'm sitting here watching, PC players don't have to do anything. They don't have to buy a PlayStation. They don't have to care about the platform. They don't have to pay for PlayStation Plus. But on top of all that now, they don't even have to make a PlayStation Network account. Meanwhile, if I look at that and I say, okay, Sony, why do I have to do all of those things for your console? Like, why do I have to do every single, I can't even expect, this would never be, you get what I'm saying? This would never be a thing. But that's the whole thing. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make here is Sony made it clear that they are going to listen, which is I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they communicate the message. We will listen when you guys throw a tantrum on the PC, marketplace. When you guys get angry and you lose it, we will listen and we will reverse our decisions. So I just can't help but sit here and think, well, Sony, if you're willing to do that for PC players, again, people who do not care about your platform or your console, people who actively decide not to buy your products unless you bring it to them, you're willing to bend your own rules that you made for them because you can't deal with the heat. It makes me think, you know what? Maybe I should do the same thing. Maybe we should do the same thing. Why should they get special treatment when they are actively not supporting you in the way that we are? PlayStation console players are supporting Sony in the biggest way. This is how I see this. I've seen this before, guys. I've literally watched Microsoft murder their own platform and their own console player base in favor of other people and players who don't care about it. And that's a thing we are continuing to witness. I've been through this, man. I watched how I know how this starts. And look, I would say people are a little bit more willing to accept some of the things that seem a bit, if not unfair, just a little bit anti-consumer. It's like, okay, yeah, if you want to play on PlayStation console, you're going to have to pay to play online. People are a little bit more willing to be like, okay, whatever, I'll accept that. If they know that you're not trying to cater to anybody else. You know what I mean? You're opening your shop, you're selling a console, and you're saying, you come to us, and when you come to us, we have things that you can only get here. We have games you can only get here. We have an experience that you can only get here. And so because of that, we're going to leverage it and try to get a little bit more out of you. That is a little bit more understandable, even from the consumer side, when you realize that you can only get it there. Once you remove that and you say, well, you can also get this over there. And over there, we don't impose these types of rules. We are willing to work with them over there. But over here, no, you play by our rules. I'm telling you, this is what Sony communicated. If you go read the replies of PC gamers, there's a mass celebration happening right now. And that celebration extends to a decently large group of PC players basically shitting on console players. You know, the console peasants. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, Sony, you literally validated that. You make a console, you have a console ecosystem, and you ask people, you tell people, you come and you play by our rules, but then you do this. And again, it is a big win. Like, I'm not against it. If anything, it makes me think, holy shit, should I reconsider PC? Seriously. Because if Sony is out here basically saying we will bend, we will. Good luck. Sony, if you think this is not going to result in what Sony thinks it is. And this is what's crazy to me, is that we are witnessing once again the beginning of a corporation who spent decades creating a console ecosystem, creating a console customer base, and then deciding, well, we're not getting enough out of you anymore, so we're going to go seek other customers. And then basically giving those other customers better treatment. Or at the very least, again, being more willing to hear them out. And that is a fucking problem to me as a PlayStation player, where it's like, Sony, what the hell? Exactly, Corey. Exactly. Dude, Sony needs to decide. Once you go into the PC space, you can't have it both ways. Because it's true, PC is different. The audience is different. The player base is different. The expectation is different. And the reason why the expectation is so different is because, well, let's be honest, most PC players are accustomed to Steam. And the reason why Steam is so different is because PC is basically the Wild West. And Steam, when Valve created Steam, when Gabe Newell set that up, he realized that, you know what, there is, it's kind of chaotic here. And we're just going to have to embrace that chaos a little bit and be very willing to work with everybody here. Steam does have their own rules, but they're very different. They're very different from the rules that you see in the console ecosystems. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, Sony, you want to have your own ecosystem, your own storefront, and you want to run it your own way by your own rules. That's your right to do that. But when you start to move away from that and decide, you know what, we are going to actually start to interact and engage with a different customer base that operates on a different set of rules. I saw this coming, dude, at some point with Sony and PC. I didn't know when exactly it was going to happen, but I was thinking at some point Sony's going to make well, I perceive it as a mistake just because I care about the console experience. That's because that's what I've always played. And it's hard not to see it as a mistake when I've invested in that console experience, right? But it seems like I was always waiting for Sony to make that move where it's you're going to validate all of the people who don't give a fuck about your platform or your console. You're going to validate them, and you're going to inadvertently, indirectly invalidate the people who actually are supporting that. And this is the first real step in it. Now, I want to add this so people don't think I'm missing the bigger picture here. I want to make it clear, the first mistake was Sony doing this in the first place. The first mistake was Sony deciding, yeah, we're going to impose PSN on Helldivers 2 3 months later and pull it from 177 countries. That's the first mistake. I want to make that clear. That should have never happened. Sony should have been intelligent enough to realize you already took that step. You already conditioned people. You already played by their rules. Leave it alone. Start with Concord. Leave it alone. But they didn't. That's the point. They didn't. For whatever reason, somebody at Sony said, no, we need to do this. And they did it. And it is the worst. Well, I don't want to say it's the worst possible outcome. It's the worst outcome for Sony. Let's make that clear. The best outcome for the player. Because the player is basically now being told, just pretend this never happened. But you can't do that. Everybody knows this happened. Everybody knows, Sony, that you said, we're going to do this. And then you got basically the shit kicked out of you on the internet by PC players. And then you were like, never mind. We're sorry. We're not doing that. And dude, I feel like as a console player who has supported PlayStation, I'm just shaking my head like, this is pathetic, bro. Like, Sony, I could at least, I could have more respect if Sony just turned to the console player base straight up and was like, we are going, well, I guess this is that in a way, but it's, again, they're speaking to the PC player base. Like, just admit, like, you're going to treat them different and special. You're gonna be willing to play by their rules, but I'm not gonna be able to sit here and just be okay with that. Because it's gonna, like, if Sony revealed their hand to me here, and I'm not saying like, fuck Sony, I hate their games. It's always about the games, no matter what. Like, that's the whole thing. That's why I've been begging for a fucking showcase. I want to see the games. But when it comes to the business practices and the way that they handle their platform and how they're handling this situation with console and PC, I am taking note of this. Like, definitely, like, okay, wow, Sony, all right. I didn't quite realize that this is how far you were willing to go, but now I do know. And that's going to live in my head going forward. How could it not? Like, now I am witnessing PC players come out and say, see, Sony ponies, see, console peasants, this is what happens. This is why we don't support console. This is why we look down on you, because we know that these companies will bend to our will. And I got to be honest, that's a fucking strong proposition, dude. Like, I watched it happen in real time. Like, Sony came out and they're like, PSN account, let's go. You play by our rules, bitch. I'm like, okay, all right, well, Sony is not fucking around here. They're telling people this is how it's going to be on PC in 24 hours. We're sorry. No, you don't have to do that. We're so sorry. And I'm like, Sony, what the, like, get your shit together, bro. Like, what are you doing? You look like Sony looks like a fucking idiot right now, as they should. And again, PC players have every right to celebrate because they just made Sony look like fucking clowns. And as a console player, dude, I'm over here just kind of feeling like, Sony, what? Hiroki Totoki, do you have any idea what you're doing, bro? This is some wild shit that's going on here. And I'm not trying to, like, again, I'm trying not to be overly dramatic about it. Where it's like, throw out your fucking PlayStation console. I mean, some people will tell you to do that. But just pay attention. That at this point, I have to encourage the PlayStation fan base. Like, you need to pay attention to how Sony's going to operate going forward, because what they did bend the knee, man. And they didn't bend the knee to console players. They bent the knee to PC players. People who said, no, thank you, Sony. I don't want your console. And I don't care about your storefront. And Sony just bent the knee to them. Did they have to bend the knee? No. Is it understandable that they would after making such a ridiculous out of left field decision that was obviously going to piss everybody off? Yeah, you can see why they decided to bend the knee. But it's like, Sony, you don't know what you're doing. To me, that's what's so clear about this is, holy shit, Sony doesn't know what they're doing in the PC space. And all they see is dollar signs. And this is the same thing that happens to every fucking company, that, like, they don't realize you just spent the past 3 decades meticulously building up a console ecosystem and a console player base where everybody who's here opted in for this and said, yeah, we're cool with the way you want to do things. We enjoy it here. And you are now pushing them to the side. Well, it might not be like out of the picture, but just, okay, guys, you stay over there. We're going to go over there and do some business. And we just witness you make a fool of yourself. It's like, Sony, I'm taking note of this, bro. I got a gaming PC. I do. And I just watched PC players bring Sony to their fucking knees. That's what I just watched. And I'm honestly sitting here thinking, like, you know what? How far can this go? Because I see a lot of response, and I'm going to read these super chats in just a moment. I see a lot of responses to the situation. A lot of people are now saying, Sony, we're not ever creating a PSN. Like, don't try to do this again. Even with future games, we're not going to do it. And I see people kind of like, not so much defending Sony. I guess it could be seen as defense, but they're pointing out, well, like, guys, like, you're going to keep that same energy to Ubisoft and Rockstar and EA and Microsoft. And it's like, no, they're not, because none of them backed down. That's the difference. Sony said, okay, we won't do this. None of these, but to be fair, though, none of these companies probably asked players to do this 3 months after the fact as well. So you see what I'm saying? Where it just reveals Sony has no idea what they're doing. And I'm in agreement. I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I'm fucking in agreement at this point. Like, Sony, you just revealed your weakness. And you just revealed that if the internet bullies you hard enough, now I'm not saying they didn't have a good reason to, but the fact of the matter is, Sony gets bullied hard enough by PC player base, you will listen. That will never be forgotten. That is etched in stone now, forever. So I honestly am at a point right now where it's like, Sony, good luck with Concord, bro. Do I read Streamlab donations? I do, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if this is the way Sony's going to handle it, because I saw there were PlayStation players that were saying, Sony, don't bend the knee, just do it, or maybe just consider walking away from PC or take it, reevaluating it. And instead, Sony just made it clear that, like, no, we're just going to listen to the PC player base. Like, that's fine. I'm not, PC players and gamers are saying this is a win for gamers. And it's like, well, you know what? In the end, maybe it is. Because I was under the impression that, dude, Sony, the way that they operate is similar to Nintendo to a certain extent, where it's like, this is our console, our storefront, our ecosystem. We're going to have our own set of rules. And there's going to be this kind of like balancing act between being anti-consumer, being pro-consumer, and just kind of finding that middle where everybody can be okay. And that's fine. Where it's like, all right, as long as you don't push things too far, yeah, it's not. And as long as you make it clear that, like, you're still trying to get people to come to you and you're trying to create big, exciting games to do that, that's fine. It can work. It has worked. That's the point. But now that's getting all that's getting fucked up now. Where it's like, so Sony will listen to the backlash if there's enough of it. That's interesting. I didn't think they would. I got to be honest. Like, I was leaning more towards, I didn't think Sony would actually do this, because I'm like, well, you already shot yourself in the foot. The damage is done. Like, if you reverse this, the only way I could see this making sense is if Sony decided today or yesterday, whenever they made this decision, the only way I could see this making sense is if they basically decided, we're just not going to ask people to create PSN accounts going forward. Because the reason why I keep saying good luck, Sony, is the blood's in the water, the sharks are circling, and they know they can devour you at this point. And the next time you come out with a game, like, I guess it'll be Concord, and you say you're going to have to make a PlayStation Network account, good luck. Good luck, dude. People are going to, the PC players anyway, are going to fucking devour you, because they know they can. They know they can bring you to your knees. And I'm not saying that means Sony has to bend, but it's just like, the message has been sent. And I'm surprised that I'm just surprised that Sony allowed it to even be greenlit in the first place. Like, who didn't see this coming?